pandemic and mental health taught me one thing, that I need to be part of the solution. If I can help one person, like affect them so they can lead a happier, healthier life, then it's all been worth it. Hello, welcome everybody to Jukebox Jax episode 3. This is the rescheduled one. Tony's kindly taken time out yet again, but this time it's been a monumental mess up from start to finish. This is, I believe, is the third time we've tried recording this now. We've got a good 15, 20 minutes into, and we're in a nice flow of conversation, and I glanced up and saw there were no recording up at the top. So, I'd not hit record. But we'll try and go back over everything.
We'll see if we have a different conversation each time, because I know so far the conversation was very different to the way it started off last time. We'll see how much we've got in us, how much bullshit we've got.
So how are you guys doing over there? COVID?
We have been doing all right. We've had some lockdown stuff this last couple of weeks. We've just come off back of as of midnight tonight, COVID is no longer like scared of masks, so there's no point wearing a mask. So we don't have to wear masks as of midnight tonight. That's been in place for like a week. After a few little quarantine issues that one guy caught it airborne through air conditioning and stuff, so that locked us down for 3 days, and then after that we've had a few little things, but we're talking one person here and there. We're not big numbers, man. Like, not, people aren't dying anymore, and we've not really had much of that. I don't know what the numbers are, to be honest. I think the numbers of infected, which sounds super, when you call them the infected, it sounds really, call a bit 28 days later. But,
very much, yeah. Where's Robert Carlyle?
Yeah. We're in the 900s, I think, since the start of it. And this is just like infected and reported. So the numbers they're small. They're small. So but we are an island though, and closing our borders is pretty easy. And we actually did it. No, none of this Boris bullshit.
I'm going to say, what the fuck? Like, Boris, I very much doubt it, like, because he'll be too busy fucking buying new wallpaper. But it'd be nice if you listened to this episode and that specific bit. It's like, Australia's an island, Boris, as in, like, United Kingdom's an island. Why is it so difficult for us to close shit down? Stop fucking people coming in.
Yeah. And I mean, it can go too far. Like, at the minute, this sweeping statement of no one's allowed to come into Australia from India. There's a butt ton of Australian citizens in India, and they can't come home now. Like, how can a country say, all right, you're Australian? Oh, well, too much COVID in India, you're stuck. Yeah, you are a citizen of this country, but you can't come here. It's like, all right, I understand that there's some serious issues here, but what we need to do is sort out quarantine and make quarantine work, not lock people out of their country.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, fucked. You can't do that. And because of the state that India's in, like, imagine the amount of people that are, Australians, they've got family back in India. People are dying, man, like, all the time. So someone goes, they figure it out, they get an exemption or whatever, however they do it, they get over there to go to a funeral, and then old Scotty from marketing's just like, no, you can't come in. You can't come back. Why not? Oh, because I'm trying to show that I'm a badass, so people, they kind of run in or back me. And you're like, fuck, Scotty. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know this Scotty, but he sounds like a dick, to be fair. He must be related to
Our
Boris.
Prime Minister is called Scott Morrison.
That's the one.
He came up as the marketing pro. Forces people to shake his hand. Straight up, mate. It's hard.
It's
bad. Aussie politics is weird, mate.
It's interesting that you brought that up about the air conditioning, because obviously I hear it over here where they're only just starting to talk about it, but the bigger scheme of things, places like Australia, America, where it's part and parcel inside your house to have an air conditioning unit. Obviously in UK, all we're bothered about is heating because it's fucking cold all the rest of the time. So we don't entertain them factors, and we only really think about it for restaurants, nightclubs, like you said. But as it stands at minute, they're not back open until, as it's stating, 17th of May. So for you guys, living in like your homes, obviously with aircon and stuff, I can see how that's like kind of up in air still. I mean, you're lucky, like you said, for number of cases, the fact that you guys and New Zealand have had your shit together from the start just sort of fucking reflects number of cases as low as they are, infection rate, even that, like you said, the one person, the fact that one person caused that chain of events for you, in the entire fucking nation now wearing masks again. But it's that sort of response, and that's why you guys are now coming on the other side of it. Like, you won't believe how much I was smiling when I was seeing your posts for obviously Dying Degree of your gigs and stuff like that. I was like, it still feels forever away for us over here. No gigs inside. Everybody's rescheduling stuff, and we're all excited at the possibility of. But the one coming up for us, the big one, obviously, Slam Dunk Festival. It rescheduled it originally, didn't. Obviously, go ahead when they rescheduled it originally, but they've penciled it in for September. Now that's still up in air. We still don't know what's going on with that. We're all hoping by September, because you're talking people like our age range for in UK will have had vaccines and stuff. So if I've had my vaccines, and I'm assuming off the top of my head, come September it'll probably be the same thing. Those people that are going on that day, they'll just have to have provided evidence that they've tested negative or whatever. But it's open air. It's middle of Temple Newsome. It used to be Leeds City Centre, but Temple Newsome now. So then it's like open air festivals. You're at no more risk really than if you go in fucking shopping.
Then it's touch points, I suppose. Then, but it's funny because initially it were all about touch points.
Yeah,
and then. You should wear masks. People kick off about masks, and they're like, I'm not wearing a mask, I'm not a sheep. Like, sheep don't wear masks, dickhead. What the fuck are you talking about? Have you seen a sheep?
Tell us that story about that guy.
All right. Depends. I mean, I don't know how excited I'll get about it this time, because I was straight from the shop then. But so anyway, so let's talk about this silly old codger. So last week, a week ago today, when we sat down for this, on my way, like coming home, I stopped at bottle shop to get a bottle of wine. And I'm in there, and mask on, old bloke walks in his 60s, used car salesman, just written all over him. Pulls up in his Merc, comes in with his nose out of his mask. So I look at him, and you know what it's like. Like, do you get it though? Like when you're in the supermarket or whatever, and you see somebody with their nose out, and for some reason, if his nose is poking out, it just makes you want to break it. Like, I'm not an angry person, but why is it so like it's so offensive? You're like, mate, just do it. So I looked at him and thought, well, you dickhead. But I don't say anything, because at that point, what's the point? But yeah, the young lad in shop's just like, now can you sorry, sir, can you lift over your nose? And he's like, I'm carrying something. And you're like, well, he's like, well, can you put it down? No, mate, I'm carrying. Can't you see? I'm carrying it. He's like, well, can put it down before you do. And straight up, he's like, nah. And I'm looking at him thinking, what's his problem? And he's kicking off and he's like, muttering over. So puts his stuff down. A young lad, fair play to him. Because, he's like 19, 20. And he's going toe to toe with this, 60-year-old bloke. Big bloke, though. Not a doddering old bloke. He's like big bloke. The sort, and he's.
He were. He were. You could tell in his younger days, he were Aussie Rules, one of them ones, proper jock.
Yeah.
Right,
no bet. And he's like, what's the problem with it? And it's like, well, I'm in charge. This is I'm in charge of the safety of my customers, and I just need you to. It's fucking kicking off, and I'm just looking at him thinking, what on earth is wrong with this bloke? And I'm looking at him with my mask on as well. And for some reason, you think that if they can't see it, it's like wearing sunglasses. And I'm looking at him, and then I realise I'm looking straight at him. And I'm like, I'm not wearing sunglasses. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, it went something like that. I was a bit worked up when I was talking about it last week, so probably,
man. All that we said last time, after obviously you'd said that, both of us have got the same mindset. It's like, I'm not a scientist or whatever, but what they're telling me is, if I just stick a mask on, I can pretty much go about my life like I once did prior to all this shit. So I want to do that. So it's not my place to disagree with it. They're saying if this is what you wanted to do, to be able to do it, just stick a mask on. Okay, I'll stick a mask on. I don't give a fuck.
I'll stick a mask on for a week. I don't care. Yeah, that's it. Like, excuse me. You got like...
I wonder how many people out there now are like raiding the fridges. They're like, oh, good idea. Let's have a drink.
Cheers, everybody. It's that thing of, if that's what you've got, that's what you choose to rebel against, like, then what is going on in your life? Like,
if that's all you've got to worry about.
Like, I'm gonna rebel. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing as I'm told. I'm gonna put a mask on, but I'm gonna stick my nose over it. You prick. Like, there's so much stuff going on that if you feel like you really want to say something and you want to do something, then go out and do it. But you sticking your nose out like a doddering old bloke, like, you're not achieving anything but making yourself look like a prick and stopping me get my wine quicker. Like,
and it takes longer for whatever that is that they're trying to do anyway. Yeah. It's like, if they just pulled it up, it took 2 seconds, and now he's stood there arguing for as long as he is for nothing. No, I get you.
Oh.
That at the fucking 12th time I was attempting it, we've got COVID out of the way. Let's move on. More important things. Let's go down history lane. Let's give people a bit of history how we first met. So I'd finished college 2003, and then I saw an advertisement that Cineworld cinemas were going to be opening up one at the Escape Leisure Complex. I'd only ever been to Wakefield one before, and before that, I think first time I ever went to a cinema was to the ABC in Wakefield to watch Independence Day, and then came out looking for aliens, like you did. So then I just applied. I think it was Cash Job Centre that were doing interviews, and it was Hassan that were there. Did interview.
Dressed all cash.
He was, yeah. Well, that guy was just casual anyway. I mean, he always thought he was Will Smith. Love him to bits, and he hates it when I say it to him. He's like, no, I don't. It's like, shut up, mate. And then we all got invited to Parkside Hotel, which obviously for those people that's local to area opposite Pontefract Racecourse. It's demolished now. There's no there, like, but that. I mean, everything about it from working at Cineworld, like it's to this point, obviously going into mental health nursing, it's been my favorite job ever. And even the recruitment process, it was so fun going into that Parkside hotel, meeting people like Blaise.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know what? I was thinking about this the other day, because obviously we'd rescheduled this and we'd had a bit of a chat about it before. So I started thinking about it a bit more and why it mattered and stuff. Because from there, I ended up working at Nando's for a while, and Nando's are good at it. They're good at like building a culture, but they focus so much on building a culture that for me, it felt really, really fake, and I couldn't. People really got into it, and that was awesome for them. But for me, it just seemed so just contrived, and I could for our restaurant. We had an amazing culture, but I just couldn't. It wouldn't work outside that, like the wider.
Yeah.
And because of that, and because they tried to push it so much, it only went so far. Do you know what I mean? As far as kind of friendships go, we had fun, but as far as friendships go, it didn't go any like outside that. But for us, it was just this culture that we built because we were there from the start, and we did this whole thing, where it was like being back at school, because we're there and we're all on his tables and we're learning and we're listening and we're doing like role play bullshit. And then you get like excursion day because they get a bus in, and you get a bus to Bradford, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to Bradford. I've never been to Bradford. Why would I go to Bradford? I don't know what's in Bradford, but I know there's a Cineworld there, and we're going to go there and we're going to get abused. So you go on a day out, do a shift in Bradford, like all together, and then like coming back on the bus, like you've got like everybody, you suddenly start to see people's quirks and just fucking Tammy screaming and shouting and just like
we could always hear her before we saw her. Yeah, that's the one. When we first started, there were so many like characters who obviously they didn't, for various reasons, whether they found other jobs and stuff like that, whether they were studying at time and they went on to get, better profession jobs and stuff. But there were individuals there that didn't stand the test of time. But who I still think about to say, people like Lee Allen.
Yeah.
Oh, funnily enough, we went on, obviously we started on Cineworld. Coincidentally, it's Lee Stones' birthday today. He turns the big 40.
Why hadn't I seen that? Facebook let me down.
It literally popped up. So I put some sort of like side joke about one, because he used to stay at me out. A lot of people used to stay at my house when we all went out on piss. But he were talking to me in depth one night about something. He were in like my brother's bed, I were in my bed, and he were just drunkenly talking to me after we'd been out. And when someone dozes off mid-conversation, but the last part of the conversation makes no fucking sense. We'd been talking about a pub in Wakefield called the Vine Tree, I think it were called. But he'd also been talking to me about pro wrestling. He'd been talking to me about WWE. And he's at the end of his sentence ended. And imagine look on my face, because I'm still wide awake at this point. I'm like looking up at the ceiling. He's talking away. And all I heard is, and then Triple H pedigreed him in Vine Tree in Wakey. And then he snored instantly straight after. And I'm just like, I'm sat there, I'm like, what the actual fuck did you just say? And that shit like that, just to this day, I could be making a fucking coffee in the kitchen and I'll just start giggling about stuff like that, because that's how impactful all them relationships were on me personally when I was there. Don't get me wrong, life takes over, doesn't it? You don't live in each other's pockets and stuff like that. But for those people that's listening to this, that worked at Cineworld with us, just know that don't matter how low you get and you've got shit going off, like you had an impact on my life, and I do from day to day think about the people who I worked with. People like that. I just wanted to say that because I couldn't even reel off all the names because there's so many, even the people I didn't necessarily get on with at that time. Like I do appreciate them, like now as I've got older. Yeah,
it's funny. I'll get a friend request every now and again, and I'll look and I think, who's this? And I get a lot anyway. But if I can see that they've got if I can see they're in a band, or I can see that they go and see a lot of bands, then I just assume that it's somebody, just a music thing. So like, that's all good. Then I'll see somebody who's from Wakey or Cass, and I'm like, who's this? I'll say,
kind of like prick
and then
up,
I'll
you sort of
look
like
through the pictures. Yeah, look through the pictures, and I'll start to think, it's that person. But my head's changed their name. In my head, they've got a different. They've got somebody else's name, and actually who they were is all just crossover. But
there's one person's name that always stays with me, and that's Jeffrey. Good old Jeff, or Bungle, or everything else that we called him. Okay. Yeah. He was like, he sounded literally like Perry, didn't he? Kevin and Perry. Okay, Miss Parson.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah. It would just, like you say, I think it's because we were, like you rightfully said, we were the first staff there. So we kind of, no one intended it, but we created the culture. But as far as I'm aware, because I spoke to people up until most recent lockdowns who had worked at Cineworld or had recently left Cineworld, and they said the culture was still relatively the same thing from how we were there. So it was nice to know in that respect that you could just fucking walk back in there, start working there, and nothing had changed. And there's lifelong things for me. Obviously, I met Nikki there when we had kids. I wouldn't have my kids if it weren't for working at Cineworld.
Yeah. So is there anybody still there? Is Sam still there?
No. Now, I'll be honest. When I started in 2013, I started working at White Rose Shopping Centre doing like security management and stuff. And there were a conference room booked out one day, and it were around the time when Cineworld had unofficially signed the contract with Land Securities, who own White Rose Shopping Centre, and it was kind of hush-hush. So I was in one of the boardroom meetings, like, because the culture at White Rose Shopping Centre with the management team was you have a meeting about having a meeting. Like, there's fucking meeting about everything. So we sat there every day and we're doing like a morning meeting. What's coming up? What's the business schedule for the day? What we need to get done. And they were showing me plans for the new extension we were having done. And they didn't put any names on it. Well, they specifically left the name of the cinema off, but they stuck the fucking italic Cineworld star, expecting me not to know what the fuck that was. So I'm like, Cineworld then. And they all just looked at me and they're like, who told you that? No one told me that. You all know my resume. I've come from Cineworld. I'd know that fucking logo anywhere. So they were like, oh, shit, yeah. And then like 2 weeks later, I was coming across food court. And I saw a few suits and stuff like that, but instantly saw a San, instantly. And then it was just weird from the moment we both clocked eyes at each other, walking about 100 feet away from each other. And we just kept eye contact the entire time, just smirking. And he was just sort of like, hey, motherfucker. And I'm like, what? I was going to ask what you doing here. I goes, but obviously, and he was like, wait, how do you know? And I'm like, went through a story with him, and he was like, He was like, yeah. And I mean, I've not seen him since that day, but he'd not aged one bit. He'd lost more hair. He didn't have that silly little fringe thing going on. But pretty much, I think he's pretty much got a fully grown up family now. Because back then, I think his kids would have been quite young, not overly like past toddlers, like 5, 6 or something like that. So yeah, it's been coming up to 10 years since then. So yeah, they'll be fully grown up and stuff. But just like I always, whenever I have these conversations, I try and hashtag the certain topics we've had. So obviously when I was doing one with Smeg, I hashtagged Cineworld. So if for whatever reason it manages to come full circle, this whole episode we're doing, I hope Asan catches it as well. So even Tim Trayford, I appreciate you, even though you thought you were Hugh Grant. That were it. That's what I used to call him.
We got along in the end.
Yeah. I clashed with Tim a lot when he first came over. It was a bit of a. I know, and I think we're both in the same boat now. We've worked them sort of professions. I understand why we were a stiffler, and he would just very much bite it. If that wasn't the rules, you just didn't do it. And but then now looking at it from his perspective, it was like, he actually just wanted to do the bare minimum, but we were so even against doing the bare minimum.
Yeah. So no, we'll do bare minimum our way, actually.
Yeah. Whether it's spinning around 50 times on a chair and then try to run down a corridor.
Well,
falling into booster seats.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the stuff that we got up to at Cineworld, we can't manage to talk about without going on about the epic biopic movie that you and Mark Falkingham came up with. So yeah, tell us a story about
that. It was a 25-minute movie that took us about a year to make. On mostly, well, not actually mostly, but quite often on Cineworld time, on salary time. We made a Batman and Robin film. So one of the managers, Kat, she'd been around. Well, she came to us. She was at Waking and came to us, but she just slotted straight in and everyone's best mate. And then she was moving to Scotland. So Mark and I had a bit of a conversation. We decided, what we're going to do is we're going to make her a film. And she'd been gone about a year before we actually got it to her, and then she came back. But
it was so impactful. She actually returned. I think she was hoping for a sequel. I think that's what it was.
So Mark and me and Batman, Mark as Robin, running around on top of my suit, my work suit, running around sometimes when the place are open, doing shots and just squeezing in shots whenever we could, grabbing 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, suiting up for the whole thing to do 10 minutes of a take, and then Mark pick up and balled it up.
Yeah.
In background, so we're going to do it again, but we've got a film going in, so Mark's got to run upstairs, dressed like Robin, put a film on, lace it up, started off dressed like Robin, come downstairs, and then he's back and he's knackered. And he's like, all right, let's do it. And then we do another scene. And then we finish work. And then we've got, biggest unit in Escape. So we've got access to all the plant rooms. So we, 2 a.m. after we close, we're like, all right, who's up for it? Like, yeah, cool. Sweet. So I'm Batman. Mark's Robin. You lot are all wearing beanies and T-shirts that are inside out, because apparently that's what evil henchmen wear. I'm like, cool, let's go have a battle upstairs. So let's just have a ridiculous battle. And then we'll I just remember.
I'm glad you're having flashbacks, because I've got constant flashbacks. Go on, I'll let you go first and I'll tell you mine.
And there's me and Mark up front, like battling henchmen and stuff. And there's a bit going on. And we told Mark, pick up, don't look at the camera. You are fighting. If you're approached, you swing a punch. Always doing something. So I just remember this outtake of whoever were holding camera just trying to stop. And there's Mark in the background going. And then, so I think Mark's just like, nah, cut. And Mark pickup just goes, am I doing it right? Looking straight at the camera, and it just had me. I would just increases.
I did have two flashbacks, and I'll come on to them. But because of that example that you've just gave, that exact scene, right? As much as it's the pickup thing that always makes me laugh, the fact that he just kept looking at the fourth wall, even if it was 90 degrees away from the actual where he should be facing, it was still looking. It was the fact that him and Smeg, when they were fighting each other, like, it was so funny because Smeg just couldn't get his he couldn't choreograph it right. So for every right punch he was supposed to take, his head had got wrong way. It just I think we must have done that one about 7 or 8 times, and in the end it was just like, well, do you know what? It's funny because obviously that's not our fight scene supposed to happen. That's just a comedy element to it.
And then that's the one that then security showed up. And they're like, what's going on here? So Mark and me walk up, me as a manager, Mark as a senior tech. And we're like, oh, no, we're just doing this thing. We're right, but we're all good. We came up and dressed as Batman and Robin.
I love the fact, like, because obviously
trying to play it down as though it's fine.
in them henchman scene, it literally, as people can imagine, it was so funny filming something like this. But we did take it seriously because Cat meant a lot to us, and we wanted to make sure it were right. But it did pretty much turn into like we were an actual movie production company. Like, you guys would be telling me instructions what you wanted. I'd be going off to the extras, Smeg thingy, sort of saying this is what it is. I'm recording it. We'd sort of like give and take. Oh, I don't really like that scene and stuff. But then when security walk in, it instantly stops. There's a panic that hits the room. Like, what the fuck do we say here? It's the slow motion effect of you taking off your mask, but still talking to and wearing your cape. And it was just the sultry way that Falky just kind of just lifted his Robin one up over his eyebrows. He didn't even take it off. But yeah, there were two things that instantly flashed to my head when we started talking about that. So the last one cracks me up to this day, and you'll piss yourself, and you've probably forgot about it yourself. But the first one, though, is when you were saying about we'd catch any sort of second we possibly could just to get recording, and whether it were during trade times or not. Even on a morning, we'd have figured out if we were going to be let's just try and nick an hour today to pull so-and-so aside or whatever. And we'd write it into the duties, like we'd make sure there were cover on a Dropbox and screen so we could pull two at lads away. And there were a scene where Batman and Robin were breaching where the staff swipe in the clocking machine. You were breaching the fire exit doors. And it was like, how were we going to put this scene together? And I distinctly remember it. There's you, Falky, and me having this executive conversation about how we're going to make it flow. You're sort of saying, oh, well, it could look good as an action point. So obviously to be exchanging right here in corridor. Falky didn't say a word to me. He just instantly, I could feel something burning in my head. I just looked at him. He makes eye contact with me. He looks up, and we had that ladder system above the clocking system, the red ladder. I just looked at you, and I'm just like, grapple hook. Obviously, I climbs up there to start getting an aerial shot of what's going off, but there were so many things like that we did just to try and make it look as good as possible. But for me, if ever there were like a trailer to it, which I'm pretty certain you did do a trailer, to be fair, but
probably
the one for me is Batman and Robin in the Batmobile listening to Proclaimers.
In my black Fiat, we get into a black Fiat Punto, but when we're inside it, it's
a Peugeot.
Peugeot 206.
Yeah, and it's got Robin driving and Batman singing along to Proclaimers.
And at one point, singing like he's like, "Oh, you know this song? No, I don't. You'll be right." So I didn't even know the song, so I'm just going, "Nothing to do." Yeah,
that to this day, it cracks me up. And I suppose reason we went down that journey lane was obviously it's nice to let people know how we come together and stuff. But I think things like that have been lost in working professions nowadays. I don't think anybody really has that much fun, and I don't think it was because of his ages. I just think it was that fun to work there.
Yeah, and it's good to do something like that, like to do something that's creative like that. It's a good escape from everything else, like. And we did it at work, and we did it all together, but we all created something together, and we all had a bit of input. And it's just to be creative and to do creative things is just, it's an amazing escape from anything. Like, I started drawing again. And it's awesome because when I'm drawing, I'm just drawing. I'm not doing something else. Like when I'm doing dying degree designs and printing shirts, like I'm doing that. I'm not doing something else, nothing else. You know, I'm just doing that for a while. And it's good. It's a good escape.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that obviously on episode, this is where it gets confusing. Obviously, ours is episode 3, which would have been done last week. I recorded episode 4 last night, and we were discussing the same sort of things. They're a band, and we were discussing all sorts of like musical challenges and things like that. But the whole premise of what we ended up discussing was how people in like lockdowns, like if they've not taken something away from this whole pandemic, like this thing that's gone off doesn't, like, it's not guaranteed that it's going to happen in any given lifetime. And we've been, as much as it's been really awful, there's been genuinely people that's lost family members and stuff. But if people aren't taking something away from all this and coming out of it a better version of themselves, they've learned a new skill, they've learned something about themselves that they didn't even know they were interested in. If they haven't done any of that, then what's any of it been for? Like,
yeah.
Because there is, it's usually, I mean, you know as well as I do, when you're talking about drawing and things like that, how many people do you know within our friend circle who also enjoy drawing and creating stuff? But the first reason they always give is, I just don't have time. And it's like, well, you've had time now. Yeah, you've had time during all this. And if nobody's revisited themselves, the younger version of themselves especially, that's got that little bit of innocence to them that didn't have to deal with the whole bullshit of adulthood, then I don't know what they've been doing. That was one of the first things I did when we went into first lockdown. I mean, you were same as me. I was still working throughout lockdowns. So I never stopped working anyway. But I work nights, so I'm quite fortunate. And obviously I get to just drive around and stuff like that. But as soon as it hit, I was like, do you know what? This is going to be with us a while now. I need to do something. I've always wanted to do the profession that obviously I'm going to be training in. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna apply for uni, and I'm gonna start doing a mental health degree. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna make a difference. But how in the interim, before all that happens, is there a way that I can still give back and help people? And then that is how. Because without the lockdown, Jukebox Jax probably wouldn't have been born, to be fair.
Yeah.
It would a simple conversation between Smeg and me, and it just grew. And you get it from you're a musician, but I'd label you as a creative content guy as well, because you made a goddamn biopic about Batman and Robin. You've got, you know what I mean? You've got that creative nature to you. So that's where me and Smeg were kind of like, we can do something. And the more conversations we're having, there's so many things coming up that we'll be announcing soon that I wouldn't have even thought a million years ago. I never got into it to, for followers and things like that. But I had to put a post because I were like genuinely overwhelmed when like we hit 1,000 followers on Instagram. And we've done nothing to deserve it in that sense. We're just getting people on. We're all talking about mental health, how it affects people, showing how people may be dealing with stuff that have come from different walks of life, but everybody's can relate to something in somebody else. And if a conversation with you, for instance, if somebody takes something away from this and it pulls them out of a dark place they're in, or it makes them think twice, or it gives them a purpose and a sense of positiveness behind stuff. And they're sort of like, do you know what? If they can do it, I used to be good at drawing, so I'm going to do this. They could go on and be doing. So if it changes somebody in some way, then it's all been worth it. And that was the whole reason that came about through lockdowns. And I just don't understand if nobody's taken opportunities like that during lockdowns.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that. But there will be, I guess. There'll be some people that I don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck.
I just sat on the sofa.
Yeah.
That's it. Just sat on the sofa. Nice.
Which, don't get me wrong, we're saying we all like binging as favourite shows and stuff, but I've found myself more than ever now during these lockdowns because of putting things in place and doing stuff creatively and creating this channel and all the other things in background. I will be sat watching some up. But whereas normally I'd just sit there for hours and watch about 7 episodes straight off, I'm finding myself having to pause and rewind it, because after 10 minutes, I've drifted off in my own thoughts about more creative stuff. And so it's taking me 4 times as long to watch a basic fucking series than what I used to do.
Yeah.
That for me were one of the coping, that were one of the coping things for me, how I managed to get across. So let's pick it up with when you left Cineworld. Obviously, you said about Nando's and stuff like that, but at what point did you decide to move to Australia or on cards?
I came here in 2013. Yeah, 2013. So I met who isn't now, but who wasn't then, but is now Jackson's mum. And I was kind of just off the back of, long relationship, back to a different one that was from earlier, and it's just relationships just not working. I thought, this is fun. And she was Australian. She is Australian. So came and had to come back. So I thought, okay, cool, let's give that a go. So just did. It was literally a matter of why not? Let's just do it. Let's just give it a try. So I came over here. And I mean, that didn't work out. But there's Jackson now, so that's awesome. And I'm here, but it's awesome. It's just, I don't really have family here, but I'm in a new relationship now, and Melissa's just awesome and put up with insane amounts of things, on the back of the things breaking up, and supported like you would not believe. I've got some of the closest mates I've ever had that have come through music. When shit really hit the fan, dude, now he's like one of my best mates. I can consider him family. But yeah, this guy who was another singer in another band, who was a bit of a mate. We talked quite a lot, but he was just another singer in another band. Was like, mate, you need somewhere to stay, come stay with me. And just put me up in his place, just gave me a room, 3 months, just wouldn't take money from me, fed me like a king. And we just, every night we just sit up and just talk shit through, and talk about music and talk about all the bullshit that's going on, and then I'm obviously, I don't live with him. I didn't stay sponging off my mate
as much as it had been tempting with them feasts that you were having. To be fair,
yeah, mate, he's a good cook. Well, that's Liz is an awesome cook as well. So I've been lucky that way. But yeah, so like just the music scene really, and the big thing for me is my friends and my people, my band are like my best mates. We're a strange collection of people, but we're super close and real good mates. We've got so much trust in each other to do when we're writing and stuff, and just it's just good. I've got amazing people around me here. Plus, it's a beautiful, beautiful country. It's insane.
Yeah, we're going to ask you as well, obviously, when you start talking about that, if how creative process has been during lockdown. Have you found it more kind of self-reflective? Has it allowed you guys to, I don't know, even maybe go down a different avenue than what you wouldn't have necessarily gone down in terms of songwriting and stuff, because you've got a little bit more time to reflect on stuff, or maybe your outlook on life's kind of changed because of COVID?
Well, our lockdown was different. So our lockdown were only a couple of months and not a proper lockdown. We couldn't practice. That drove us all crazy. We lost gigs. And mate, I've got 6. So I kind of band manage as well. So I booked most of our gigs. I've got 6 months of gigs booked in. Everything going great. ready to release singles. Oh, well, we talked about it. New merch, everything set up. And we pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And we said we were going to do the last gig. We were going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And then they said, nah, pubs are going to close. I'm like, shit. And then we couldn't gig.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Slight technical issue. I'm going to try, where possible, to edit this out. So if none of this that I'm saying right now actually makes it into it, Tony will know why, because I've done my genius work of managing to slice two conversations and it actually flowed. But we'll see. We'll see how it works. So let's push on with music. All things Dying Degree. Those people that have not heard you guys before, just give us a bit of an intro into who Dying Degree are, the sort of music, your influences and such.
Well, we call ourselves a punk band. We're not really a punk band, and that's become a joke, and that's kind of worked its way into our merch and logos and stuff, that we're not really punk. But so obviously, I don't know how much of the previous thing we might lose, but basically when I came to Australia, I had no family and this and that. And I made friends through music. Obviously, I was in bands back in England, but we didn't gig to the level that I gig now. And I just missed it. I wanted to do it. So looked on Facebook, found some stuff going on, joined what was initially going to be a cover band playing like NoFX and Bad Religion and strung out songs. Never really happened that way. Excuse me. Got my mate Kyle, who works at the winery with me. Genius guitarist. I decided that I'm going to play guitar. Useless guitarist. Kyle's going to play bass. So Kyle played bass initially. We got our mate Ross playing guitar. So two okay guitarists playing guitar. Awesome guitarist playing bass. Then I realized that playing and singing was not me. So we got our mate Tom in, awesome guitarist. We never did anything. We couldn't find a drummer. That all went to shit. And then Kyle and me started this new project that was supposed to be like a punk project. Kyle doesn't listen to punk. But the kind of conversations we've had with that, let's do a punk, man. So Kyle writes this song. It's now the first song in our set. It's called Vibe. It's just this blasty song that's just powers through. And we started working on that. So then we reached out. Finding a drummer's the hardest part. Got Matt involved. That all worked out. Ross played bass for a while, and then he went back to the UK. We got Nick in, organs blazing, playing every other week. Initially, we take whatever we could get, playing Wednesday nights in venues that on a weekend are like R&B clubs and stuff, but on a Wednesday night there's nobody there, so you can figure. And then we just kind of really got into the whole scene, and the kind of heavy music scene in Perth's really good, particularly the metal scene. It's real close, and there's a lot of support there. So we thought, okay, cool. We're just going to really hit the metal scene and gig a lot and really got into it. And then it's kind of, I don't think we realized initially what it meant to us all. I think that's the thing. Like because it happened the way it did, he just built on it and then gigged and loved gigging and stuff. I don't think we realized what we get from it and what the kind of escape and release that it gives us. So yeah. We're a heavy kind of hardcore band, I guess. Lyrically, we're I just write about stuff that happens. So I think more. So we just released a song called Gatai. Gatai is about it's about people coming together, and where there's always people that are going to tear something down just for the sake of it, but if you stand together as a scene and people who are, like-minded and come together, you don't have to be a disruptive prick. You can just all come together and help each other and be part of something.
Yeah.
And that's what gatai is about. So gatai is a Japanese word that means it means to kind of come together or combine. It's literally the word that they use for, the robots that build all together to make a big robot. Kyle's a total weeb. It was a working title, and I just thought it was cool, so I kept the working title.
I have to say the merch that you've been working on at the minute, that's pretty dope, to be fair.
Yeah, thanks, mate. So Kyle drew it. So he drew, the whole thing, and I do some designy stuff to kind of make it t-shirtable, if that makes sense, just so that it makes sense to print.
Yeah.
And then I taught myself how to screen print. So I screen printed all in my flat. And yeah, so it's all like 100% DIY. But it means that we can sell it cheap. That's the main thing. Like bands in Perth, they're going to charge like $25 for a t-shirt, $35 for a t-shirt. They're going to charge $60 for a hoodie. We're charging $30 for a hoodie with a front and back print that's dope, and t-shirts with front and back print for $15. So it's just makes more sense. It means that people can get behind it, and we can get our logos on people.
Yeah, because obviously, when you're talking about, obviously, we're both in the same boat with music and things like that. Like there is at times you might like merchandise from your bands that you like sporting and things like that, but they're extortionate. But there is reasons why those bands have to charge what they charge. There's certain overheads they've got to cover, but wherever possible, from obviously a band where you guys are at the minute, even as people know, obviously, what me and Smeg are working on merchandise for Jukebox Jax brand. If the cost is as low as possible, because a lot of people get confused where they think, oh, yeah, it is a source of extra profit for the band, but that's not the main premise why they do it. They want to get themselves out there. They want more people to, even if it's someone got into the band because they liked the design of it. Oh, that t-shirt looks nice. Oh, who a dying degree. You know what I mean? Even if it reaches someone that way, it's bridging that gap again about different interests and such. Somebody who just liked the design has ended up being one of the biggest fans you've got, because it turns out, holy shit, they actually write the sort of music that I like as well.
Yeah. And that's it. And it's just, what on earth?
Oh, let me know if that's my assignment. My assignment's been stuck that I sent about 6 months ago to my printer, and it doesn't appear on the printer trail or anything, but it could rock up there. It might be that, mate. 17 pages if it's there. So yeah, post it out to me.
But yeah, and that's it. So we and it's just cool to do. Like I said, just to do creative things. Like particularly, like Kyle and me are very into that. We're into creativity and art, and it's cool that now we're kind of collabing a little bit, where he'll chuck some drawings up, and then I get to play around with it and bring some kind of design stuff into it. It turned out, as it happens, he's a sick designer as well. So between the two of us, we kind of really kind of step that up a bit. It's good. It's heaps of fun.
Well, it's quite funny because obviously, I mean, you and me have been having so many conversations recently, but the one night we were having a conversation, I'm saying one night for me, probably middle of the day for you. I'm still adjusting. I still can't manage to tie an exact time down for you. We're having a conversation about merchandise and stuff like that, and it's quite interesting how you described how it is for you two, because I would, word for word, would probably say that is how it is with me and Smeg. Like we're having conversations about merchandise and stuff, but we're already on the same wavelength with stuff, and then one of us will then come up with something else that the other one didn't think about, but then it allows the other person then to be sort of like, oh, hang on, well, let's build on what you've just thought there and do that. And then it ends up turning into something that probably didn't even look like it did to start with, but actually looks amazing afterwards. So I get what you mean. It's always nice when you've got someone to share that kind of relationship with, that creative relationship.
Yeah, totally. And Kyle gets it as well. Like he knows that, when we started, you just draw stuff. But then you got to remember, we print on black t-shirts in white print. So you got to bear that in mind. You got to think about how white's going to look on black. So now Kyle, he'll design, draw white on black. And then he knows as well that I'm going to distress images because it helps me when I'm printing. If I throw this, so this is a custom print. So this design isn't actually available on hoodies. But our friend Nola, who comes to see us, and then her husband Brett, her man Brett. So she wanted this design on a hoodie. So we did a one-off for her. But you can see like there's a distressed look to that print.
Yep. That looks sweet.
And we use that all the time because it just gives us a bit of leeway. Yeah. So now that's kind of built into designs. Like, I put the distressed stuff on, but it just helps us. It means that I can print more and I get more of a hit rate. So since we've been doing this design, with this beautifulness, since we've been doing that one, we've had no misprints at all. So stoked. We've come a long way.
Creatively as well. It's like it's the way that it's kind of like it's improving your skills along the way as well. Like the stuff I'm learning from Smeg, because obviously Smeg's he's a graphic designer. But it's also quite humbling as somebody who I'm not from that background. I used to draw half decent when I was younger, but I've had that creative mindset so I can kind of adapt and implement stuff. So it's nice at times when I'll send stuff across to Smeg of what I've in my head, what I've already designed and stuff, and then he'll come back saying, I don't feel I need to do it on that, mate. That's completely spot on as it is. Like, leave it as it is. And I'll be sort of like, are you sure? Yeah. Like, because he's teaching me things like negative space, and I'm like, what the hell's negative space? And he's teaching me all things like that. And I wouldn't have had any of that unless I were collaborating with him. And he don't have to do any of that stuff. It's like he's not getting any gain out of doing it. He's on board just for the fact that he likes what I'm trying to do with this, and it helps us come together. But yeah, I don't think I'd be able to get half as far as I have creating the stuff ready for merchandise if it weren't for him. So it's always nice when you have got someone else that just gets it and that can help you a long way. So I understand what you mean with merchandise, but that might be something where we end up having to go down, because at the minute we try to secure a shop on Shopify. I was going to say Spotify. I was going to say Spotify then. Shopify. And to be fair, the basic plans that they've got over there and stuff, they're not too bad. It works out between me and Smeg sharing. It's like £11 each a month. And I didn't even realise there's loads of stuff that on there that as part of your basic plan, you can offer gift cards and stuff like that. And I never even thought about gift cards. But it's still the same premise of what we're doing with the brand, that it's you take, because obviously it's not drop shipping, it's printing on demand that they do. So as soon as someone likes products, they click it goes into cart. Whoever's responsible for printing it for you or designing it, they get it done. It gets posted out to people. Their money comes off, and then whatever you've set as your profit comes back. But the profit itself is very minimal, but 75% of that straight away gets donated to mental health charities, and then whatever else is left, that 25%, then gets cut between me and Smeg. So if you're talking, I don't know, on a t-shirt, we might be getting £2 summer to share between us. We'll get £1 each on a 15 quid t-shirt. So we are looking down avenues, obviously, that will back to the whole point of this ramble that I'm on. was that conversation I'm having with you where Smeg were talking about buying a printing machine and things like that. So that is an avenue where we will end up going down. I could just see my house being full of boxes of fucking t-shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that pretty much how yours is?
No, because the whole point for us is that we wanted to do that. So we pretty much print on demand. I make sure that we've got gear to take to gigs with us. Yep. But I just make sure that we've got just enough for a gig. That's all we hold. And then if somebody asks for one or someone orders one in the bank account, then if it's not something that I'm holding, then I just go to Kmart, pick up a shirt and print one up. So that's part of why we can stay cheap, because we hold no stock. So it works. It's just you got to put the time in. I reckon it probably took me a year until I could actually, I was happy that we were charging money for shirts. I've given a lot of shirts away at gigs because kind of just like, I just didn't feel like charging money for them. Like these new ones that we got now, like, love them. And the other one as well with the skull and the not really punk, like that's a cool shirt as well that I'm really proud of.
Yeah. My shirt's still not here yet, just to update you. I don't know where. No, I
got it back because I didn't.
You've got it back?
I've got it back.
Oh, mate, that's all right.
Yeah. I didn't sign a custom slip.
Oh, you got signed custom slip?
So it could have been like knives or drugs or something, so.
See, that makes sense then. That makes sense. But I mean, this is one avenues that me and Smeg have been going down where obviously I'm using print-on-demand services who are based in the UK. I mean, for two parts, because I want to give back and use local businesses, but also on top of it, I don't want to have to go down the avenues of taxes and stuff, and that being added on top of people who are then buying this stuff. And it's going to impact the sales. Like people are going to be less likely to pay for something if it's 15 quid for a t-shirt, but they're having to pay a tenner in postage. So that's why we've gone down that avenue of using local drop shippers, because it's like whatever. I think one of the things is like £3 somewhat for postage to anywhere.
Well, that's it, and it's worth it, and it's fun, and it's nice to have merch. That's the thing. It's just nice to have merch. It's awesome to show up, play a gig, and to have merch there to sell. It does a lot for your image, and it's just fun. It's just a fun thing to do. We make nothing.
It gives as well, obviously from my own experience, when you go into your local gigs and stuff, and you can't, in my opinion, you can't ever say you're at a local gig unless you're at the gig, and then in intermissions or whatever in between different sets, different bands coming on, everybody's huddled round a wallpaper pasting table that's got t-shirts on and that's got stickers on and pin badges, that's got back in day CDs and stuff like that. Like that's the whole point of a gig. And at them tables as well, it allows you time to interact with bands who you've literally paid money to come and see and support, like, and get to know them and build this community around your bands, because it's never just about getting out there and doing it for your own gains. You actually care about the fans that are listening to you, and you are listening. You're listening to the feedback that they're giving and how they felt when they listened to your song, even though you've never met them before, but somehow you've condensed their entire life into a song that you wrote by never meeting them.
Yeah, totally. And that's it. And that's the whole thing. It brings everything back to songs and music and how they, how people react and how they react when you play it live. And, if you make enough impact on someone and then they want to spend whatever $15 on a t-shirt, then I'm stoked. That's awesome.
I'll ask you a question that I asked the lads on recording storage. Bear with me a second. I'm doing some technical stuff at the same time. The previous part one recording that we did, it's finished encoding. It just pops up saying it's in the file. I'm like, get off the screen. I can't see Westwood's face. Yeah, we were talking last night about the music industry and, you know, where it's at and how it's going to come back and things that need to change and stuff like that. But we also talked about the importance of music and mental health, and a lot of people that don't seem that kind of bothered that it's in the situation that it's in, and that it's quite sad because you've got a lot of venues that have closed that are never going to reopen again. As it stands at minute, maybe down the line they will, but you've also got a lot of musicians that they've just given up in that sense. And I hate saying it in that way because there's a lot that goes into someone's decision of if they're going to continue or not. I'm not disregarding the reasons that they do it, but point being, there's so many people now that have stopped the path they were on because of what's happened with the pandemic and stuff. But without music, you don't have anything. Like you've got a song that someone will hear and it takes them back to a funeral of a loved one, or first dances at weddings. Without music, where's that?
Yeah.
We were saying last night that, I mean, my personal opinion on it is, like, I think in terms of, you've got like your music industry, your executive sort of like production labels and stuff like that. Like, I believe, and I'm not saying all the time they should be doing it, same as what I said on last episode, but I think because of what's going off with pandemic, they should be reinvesting, kind of like what most countries do with like grassroots sports, investing in children, facilities to allow them to move. They should be doing that for the music industry as well.
Yeah, arts comes last. Just, it does here in Australia, it does in the UK. Do you ever wonder why, like, there's so many awesome bands, as in like bands, that come out of Sweden? Have you ever noticed that? Some killer punk bands, some awesome metal bands. Like, you know, I guess obvious with Millencolin and In Flames. So Sweden, I don't know if they still do, but they did. They invest in bands and resources for bands. So they push it out like to the community. So there's spaces where bands can rehearse. And if they don't have instruments, then there's instruments that they can use. And then you get these killer bands that come and rise up from, you know, and they go out into the world and they just kill it. Can you imagine the amount of bands that are doing well in Sweden that are Swedish that just didn't get out?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean they're not successful, but they're still there. And it's a huge, huge thing. But, you know, the arts just...
You are right what you're saying as well. It's the arts part, isn't it? Like you're saying, like, I was watching documentary. I think it was during the first part of the lockdown, like the first lockdown in UK. There were one on, and I think it was on Sky Arts channel or something like that. And they were talking to musicians, and one of the musicians was Damon Albarn, obviously from Blur and Gorillaz. And he was saying the same sort of topics what we're talking about here, how there's no subsequent funding going into helping the next generation of musicians come up. You know, if we're not careful, there's not going to be venues for them to play, rehearsal spaces. And unfortunately, it's because the stigmatized view by a lot of nonsensical people where they're kind of like, if you work within the arts industry, and unfortunately at times music and musical acts are combined into that, which I don't think they should be. I think they're two separate things. But because you're labelled as being in the arts, you're seen as in a quite privileged profession. Like, you're lucky to have even got where you are, kind of thing, so stop whinging, you know. Yeah. So what, you can't be in a band, get a proper job and pay your bills that way. And it's like, you know, what do you mean a proper job? Like, it's them sort of nonsensical approaches, and it's them sort of reasons why there isn't the investment, I think, because it's deemed wrongly. It's deemed, like I say, as you've got to be quite well off, well fortunate, come from a good family, you've been paid to go through music tuition, go to your lessons and things like that, you know, even bought instruments by your parents. It's not always the case. People like yourself, me, how many times have you just sat there and you saved your pocket money up to buy like the most horriblest electroacoustic guitar ever, demolished every one of your strings within the first hour, but you still try to put something together, and finger cramps, finger blisters, everything.
That's it. But you can't, and the people that oppose it tend to be the ones with that, it's big business, and it's, people that kind of money goes back into that funds political parties and and that kind of thing. And so it's super twisted, mate. But that's what happens. It's like over here. The uni that Melissa goes to, she was in the last of the theatre lot. So she just finished like top of her theatre everything. But that's the last of it. There's no more. So it doesn't matter how well she did. Like, she can't go back there and further that, because it's just done. But then things like engineering and this and that gets more and more money put in, because that pays for the mines, basically.
Yeah.
So the money comes in from the mines, and then it goes back out, and it goes that way. And it's frustrating, but it just kind of is what it is. And we, like, for us, like Dying Degree, we just look at it and think, okay, so now what do we do? A venue closes down, we'll do everything we can to try and help them out beforehand, but then we just look at it, all right, cool. So now what do we do? Like, we can't make money off of making music, but we want to make music. So we do make music, and then we'll print t-shirts. We can't make money off t-shirts because we can't charge $60 for a hoodie. How do we do that? We learn how to print our own. So it means that we're not making mad bang, but our profit margins are good. So our profit margins are over 100%. Still doesn't mean we're making a heap of money, because we're still going to rent a practice room. We've got a permanent rent on a practice room. We've got to pay that no matter what. So doing these things still doesn't mean we make money, but it just means that we get a bit coming back. And it means we can fund a hobby. And we can only consider it a hobby because you just can't. Like, the way that things are, like, we can complain about it and we can piss and moan, but the way that things are, for the most part, if you're a musician of some kind, probably just going to have to work a second job, just the way that things are, or you're going to have a job and music be your hobby or your second job. For us, we don't make enough money off it to call it a second job, so it's a hobby. But
I think as well, that's why it's important within not just the music industry, but I suppose, well, in every circle, like in terms of me or what I'm doing and stuff like that. It's important to surround yourself with like-minded people that are going to support you through things, whether it's other bands, even like I can't even tell you. I've got so many people who I'm in contact with who also do their own podcast shows. Some of them that aren't to do with mental health, some that are. There's a group of lads, Scott and Mitch. They're in London. Shout out to Midnight High Podcast. Catch them on Spotify if you get a chance. They started their podcast up same way I did, in that sense, just during lockdowns, as a way of coping with lockdown for themselves, and it's kind of grown into what it is. You've got another guy. I'd put a post on Jukebox Jax Instagram channel yesterday, I think it was. Taylor James, he's got his own podcast show as well, the Waffle Shop podcast, and he specifically talks about mental health. And literally, I've got them coming up at some point being guests, both of them. I'd have never met them if it weren't for the fact that I started going on this journey. But already we've struck up this rapport. We're friends, apart from just people who've got an actual interest. And it's same for you guys with Dying Degree, surrounding yourself with other musicians who you might, you place where you're rehearsing and things like that, it might just drop off. But then one of the other musicians who you've worked with, who you've supported, they've supported you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, we've actually got a slot at this rental space that we use. If you didn't build them relationships, you weren't able to kind of continue the growth of what you try to do.
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about, different people and doing mental health. podcasts and stuff. And one of the things that, so a lot of what kind of lyrically, there's a lot of mental health stuff in Dying Degree that I write, because it's a lot of, I just get heaps out of it, and I dump as well. I'm a writer that just dumps. I have no idea. Don't go into a song with any idea of what I'm going to do. I sit down. I don't write until we've jammed the song so many times. We've been known to play gigs, and I've had no lyrics, and I've just jibber jabbered as a way to just find melody.
Yeah.
And then once I found the melody, and that's it. Then I sit down and figure out what the song's about. Like, there might be a word here and there, but mental health is quite a lot of it. One of the things that kind of made me realize that was kind of all right, and just the first couple. I mean, Run, the other single, like, that's super deep, that song. Like, but that one just kind of fell out. I didn't really think about it too much. But then, kind of on the back of that, there are a lot of guys in bands that obviously at the minute they're not out on tour, but like, you know, big bands, people that I look up to, that are using it and using their platform to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
People like, you know, one of my biggest idols, Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage, like, he speaks so openly on Instagram just about just how he is and fucked up stuff that happens. And he's just started a podcast that I've been listening to called Stoke the Fire, with an English dude, actually, and it's awesome.
It's on my list, that as well. I listen to that.
Is it?
Yeah. Shouldn't come as a surprise.
Good,
shouldn't come as a surprise.
Yeah. Do you listen to Bury Tomorrow? I know they're on. They're on the. Yeah. I love Bury Tomorrow. I have done for a long time. And Dan Winterbates does Sunday Safe Space every Sunday, where he gets someone in and talks to them, and that's awesome.
And that is the power of, and I think it's always been the case. I think that's why I've resonated with music as much. I used to struggle to communicate how I felt when I was younger, how to articulate what I was thinking. But I'd listen to a song, I'd listen to the lyrics, and it was if that song were written for exactly what I was thinking, even though it could have been written 25 years ago. And I think it's always been important, because of my two loves of music and mental health conditions, illnesses, of bridging that gap and putting them both together. And it's amazing to see so many musicians at the minute speaking it. And from a stigma standpoint, specifically males, because not enough males talk about how they feel. You know, from obviously that episode I recently did with Mark Jones, the struggles, you know, you know Mark as well as I do, and you'd never have thought he'd been going through what he'd been going through, because he, you know, everyday life, it's such an outgoing person, always laughing. First time we were saying, oh, you know, we're going for beers, first one there. Guys just don't, and we're getting better as a population. We're getting better about talking about things, but there's still a lot of stigma involved, and we're not just talking, you know, depression, suicide. We're talking eating disorders as well, anorexia, bulimia. Freddie Flintoff obviously started talking recently about his struggles with bulimia and things like that. And I think it's important that we're, in the first point, because I'm a guy doing obviously a podcast, in the first instance, guys especially need to be better at speaking out about how they're feeling, confiding in your friends, your family, sometimes even strangers, but just the entire world, the movement that we're on, you know, women, young children especially, because of obviously the lockdowns, how it's affected them. Everybody needs to get better about talking and opening up, but it's all about them circles around you. If you're not in that place, or you don't have the support around you to talk about it, then you're doomed. You're going to love I know you avidly listen to obviously each episode as they're getting done and stuff, but you're going to love next week's, because there's a guy, Felix, he's the lead singer of Old Selves Band. Check him out on Spotify. They're brilliant. They're very musically and lyrically very much like dying degree, to be fair. But Felix is an actual active mental health nurse. That's his profession. But yet you wouldn't think when you meet him and you talk to him because of the sort of music that he does and things like that. But yeah, I think you as a songwriter, your process as you go through, I think you'll take a lot out of that conversation that I'll be having with him. And he'll have listened to this episode by then. So he'll straight away, he'll probably be like, no, I checked it out. And yeah, very much agree with what Tony was saying.
There's so something that we've been lucky. Like, it's funny when you talked about kids and having kids in this circle. So we've been lucky enough to be involved in a bunch of all ages shows that have been going on pretty often. So our brother Ursh, he's a legend, and Kelvin's involved as well. And he put on a monthly all ages show, and we get a bunch of teenagers out, and it's awesome. It's so good. You would have seen the video of us getting young Colt on stage, and he's like 7.
That guy, I tell you, what a little legend. I love watching videos of him.
So good. Like, props to his dad Cam for getting his lads out and letting them experience it and encouraging them to be like fully involved. Like, Colt was a bit nervous at the start, but now he's my buddy. Like, whenever we play and we get out, or if I get out with one, and he's there, he's my buddy, and I made him a t-shirt up. And but one of the things, particularly, I usually get a 30 seconds or whatever before we play Run, and because Run's it's not ambiguous at all. Like, it's straight up. It's about struggling with mental health but coming through, and the song works that way. It trudges and trudges and trudges, and it ends quite heavy, but by the end it's all pretty positive. And I usually get a bit of chance to talk there, and I'm not someone who plans stage pattern, but when we play these ones, I found myself taking this opportunity to talk to these teenagers and these younger, they're not kids, but like younger folk who are super passionate about what they're seeing, mad circle pits, but the most respectful circle pits you've ever seen. If there's kids, like smaller kids, then the circle pit's over here, and they know where the kids are, and they're an awesome bunch. But yeah, I find myself like just talking and saying, look, this is a song about just accepting your mental health and knowing where you are and realizing where you are. The most important thing is that we're all here. We're all here in this room, and that these are the people that can get you through it, and that these are the people, and the way to get through it is to talk. And you don't have to talk about what's going on. You don't have to say, man, I feel shit, man, I'm confused, man, I'm suicidal, like anything. You just have to talk to someone. So you have to do things like this. You need to, if this is your catalyst to get together with your friends, if that's music, then use music to be that, and use music to be that. Mate, what are we doing? Let's go see a band. Let's go do this, do that. Let's have conversations. And when you're having conversations, you feel better, whether you're talking about your actual problem or not, just because you know that your mates are there. And chances are something's going to come up, and something's going to relate, something's going to cross over. And even if it's subconscious, there's going to be something that's going to just twig, and it's just going to make you feel better because you've made a connection. And when you make personal human connections, you feel less shit, you feel less lonely. If you feel lonely, you're fucked. You need to open yourself up to not be lonely. And that's it. Like, I just ranted, and that's the kind of shit that comes out like on a microphone when I'm talking to these teenagers, and it's awesome. It's so awesome. They stand there and they listen, man. Like, they listen and they get excited, and then we kick the song off and they lose their shit. And it's cool, man. It's awesome.
See, these are examples of the things that we sort of we're talking about. Just like, for instance, obviously, how passionate you were when you were talking about it. You can see that it means a lot to you, that you're, for your own, there is, for your own development and your own growth as a person, but that you're giving back in that way, and you're helping the next generation to learn from mistakes you might have made yourself, coping mechanisms that you've put in place that worked for you might not work for others, but it might help a few people that's in that crowd. And if it helps one of them, then it will all worth it. So I'm one of those advocates where someone, like you just did there, where you're having a conversation and you're like, I just that's what that whole rant were about there. Rants are good. You can't rant if you're not talking, and if people are not talking, this is where it's all dangerous. So I'm one of the first advocates and one of the first people to sort of sit there and say that I will sit and listen to anybody and everybody, inverted commas, rant as much as they want, because I guarantee 100% of the time I'll be sat there with a smirk on my face because I'm agreeing with every single word that they're saying. And it was no different than when you were saying all those things out. It was just, I was super proud to be hearing it coming from you. And I think a lot of people, just like a lot of us guests on here, that a lot of people are going to be able to sort of like relate to what you were just saying there. And coming from somebody who was in a band, who some people, whether we'd like to say we are or not, some people will see as, you're successful, you're in a band, you've got a family of your own, you live on the other side of the world from, where you were when you were a kid. People will look up to us in that way. So it's important that we give back wherever possible, even through conversations. Man, I suppose we should wrap this conversation up, but we're going to stay. We're going to stay on. As soon as we go off air, we'll be here for a fair few hours yet. Anyway.
I'm dying for a piss actually, so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Amen to that. This is the problem with drinking while we're recording. We should get like, I don't know, catheters and stuff.
But I switched back to beer. It's still beer time.
To close us out, just give us for those people listening, because it's hard at times. People are watching and people are listening. So those people that's watching, firstly on YouTube, but as you've seen throughout the episode, just like normal, we've got lots of social media adverts coming up throughout. So obviously Dying Degrees information's all there, Bandcamp, Spotify, things like that. But yeah, Tony, just let those people listening know where they can catch Dying Degree content, etc.
Yeah, so jump on Facebook, search Dying Degree the band, and you'll find us. The URL is like facebook.com/Dying Degree the band. On Instagram, again, dying.degree. Bandcamp, but just find Bandcamp through everything else. That's where you're gonna. That's where you can download stuff for free and buy merch. Spotify, jump on Spotify. We've got a new single out that came out just a couple of weeks ago called Gattai. That's awesome. Gattai. Cool, kind of groovy, hardcore song. And you'll find a song called Run on there as well, which is probably kind of our shining mental health song, I suppose, because people know it. So yeah, jump on there and have a listen and just let us know. Like if you'd listened to it, it'd be awesome if you could let us know that you'd listened. And whether you're all like, mate, I can't understand this, it's all rah, rah, rah. I get that every day. So, but it'd be nice to hear that you'd even had a listen. And if you actually dig it, then even better, just let us know. We'd love it.
Tony, man, I've loved you being on, man. I knew going into this was going to be one of these episodes where it could quite easily go 5 hours. I just know full well. I'll say the same thing to you, what I've said to other people. My whole premise when I first started this is I'm going to be revisiting guests further down the line. So it's not going to be the one and only episode with Dying Degree. There's going to be multiple ones. We can maybe get the other guys involved next time as well to join you. We'll end up doing a solo one away from Dying Degree, your own personal struggles and such, where we can discuss and people might be able to. But we'll be definitely be doing a few of these, buddy. But I appreciate your time. I know you've pretty much blocked out 2 weeks solid for me now to try and tie this down. But yeah, man, I love you. It's been awesome to catch up. And
Awesome.
we'll say bye to everybody. And then we'll have us after party drinks. So, yeah. Cheers, guys. Don't forget, live life, be kind, and give back.